This is Robert Mardlachi, the Mindshare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine, and welcome to this week in Canadian Edtech MindShareTV podcast featuring Dr. Kecia from at K20Connects, co-producer of Tech and Learning EdExec Summit, September 6th to 8th. This coming September, we're excited to be partners in this, and I'm thrilled to welcome Kecia. Thank you for joining me today, Kecia.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's
I,
been a while since we've talked, and I'm really
yeah,
honored and privileged to be here today with you.
well, I have fond memories of you coming up to Connect and speaking and keynoting there many years ago, and hopefully we can get you back up to Canada soon. But a little bit about Kecia. Kecia's career includes designing technology within the First Center for the Visual Arts and directing technology research through Vanderbilt University School of Medicine Science Outreach Programs as a district administrator for the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. She led the award-winning design, implementation, and evaluation of instructional technology programs, including instructional design for online and blended learning environments, redesigning physical learning environments, and redefining school libraries and establishing the virtual school toward the diploma. She leads K20 and a consulting firm and other passion projects supporting K20 education around the world. And the Tech and Learning EdExec Summit is one that you're co-producing. Tell me about the
Yeah.
inspiration behind it, Kecia.
Well, I think you mentioned that you were at COSIN, and when Christine and I were at COSIN, we were sitting in the lobby talking, and all of these ed tech leaders were popping into our little area and chit-chatting with us. And so as people were coming and going, and there were literally probably 50 people that came in and out of that little circle, and over an extended period of time that we're sitting there. And we just started thinking, wow, this really feels like something that we used to have, but we don't have anymore. And so we actually right then and there started brainstorming. Wouldn't it be cool if we had an event that was focused on ed exec leaders who could come together and kind of have a sharing of the minds, realizing and recognizing that there could be some competition in this space, but also understanding that we're all in this together, and we're all in this to help
Right.
ultimately education worldwide improve and make sure that technology plays a critical role in that, and also that technology is doing its due diligence, or that humans are doing due diligence with technology. And so that was the inspiration to kind of bring ed exec people together and kind of feed them with professional development, information, news, etc., but also networking opportunities where they could get to know one another, see where there might be a potential for partnership, or at least learn who's in the
Absolutely.
space, who's doing what.
Fascinating. You know, the informal learning part, I was just at ERDI in DC,
Yeah.
and we were at ISTE, and the informal learning events, the gathering, is something that really is very impactful. I mean, in fact, I discussed this with Jerry Seinfeld on my way to graduation at Pepperdine for my master's in EdTech when I ran into him in the parking lot at the Starbucks in Malibu, and I said, "We are going to graduate on Alumni Hill, and we studied your movie documentary Comedian from a learning theories perspective on informal learning and concepts." He was so engaged and fascinated. So I'm chewing the fat with Seinfeld about learning
Nice.
theories, and then I was going to graduate. So you never know who you might run into in this industry. But
Mhm.
talk to me about your role as co-producer, and it's the location sounds fabulous.
Yeah, well, my role as co-producer is really co-supporter for Christine Weiser, who's the amazing
She is
um,
very and a legend in that tech.
person behind Tech and Learning, and just helping come up with the program, helping identify really great speakers who can come and share their expertise. We actually just finished a call, kind of going through the final agenda and making sure we had all the right people in the right places. She obviously is the major lift of that, and I just kind of help in a very supporting role. But the location is in my home state and hometown, Atlanta, Georgia. And it is at a location that is kind of a hot spot in Atlanta, Chateau Allant. And they have a wonderful winery there. It's beautiful grounds, beautiful building. I'm going to say historic, although I haven't vetted or proven that, but it feels historic because it's as old as I am. So it is really beautiful and in kind of an intimate setting. When you're there, you don't realize or feel like you're in the middle of Atlanta. There it is. It's very pretty. Braselton, Georgia, by the way, is how you pronounce that. So, or Braselton. Braselton. Oh,
We were talking about tech infused pedagogy, and your role is very important in that.
yes. Well, I mean, I'd like to think my role is important in that. But I feel I've been in technology for a long time, since the beginning. I like to say since the beginning of technology, but not really. But since the 80s. So when I first came into my career in teaching, we were in a space where technology was really something we feared. We weren't comfortable with it. We weren't sure of it. We felt like it was going to take over the classroom. We would lose control of the classroom and lose control of our teaching and learning. And over the years, fortunately, and uh, in, in great support of many of the people who are going to be attending this event. They've been in the technology space for a very long time too, and many of them, Julie Evans, Lil Kellogg, Adam Gary, have
Yeah,
led a lot of work to help educators, superintendents, leaders, universities understand the important and pivotal role that technology can play in education, and not just the teaching and learning side, but the operation side of education
right,
using data. Tim Beekman's going to be here. He's done a tremendous amount of work, not just with his amazing company, but also on in the background with how we use data and how we respect data, but also how we can use data to inform what we do, even with licensing of products. So everyone that is here has been committed to the use of technology in education for years, some more years than others. But I think it's going to be a great mix of thought leaders and just a good opportunity to mind meld and really think about what we can do to take technology and education to the next level. I think the role that technology has to play in what we're doing in the future of education will be with much more intention going forward than it ever has been from the point, from this point to the past.
it's fascinating time and post COVID. Who would have imagined in our lifetime 100% of educators would have used some form of tech pedagogy because of necessity.
Yeah.
And beyond COVID, the challenge is avoiding the great snapback, right? There was some criticism around online learning failing, and
Yeah.
but I remind folks this was in a crisis. You
Right.
know, it was like teachers were building the plane as they were flying it because so many
Right.
were new to it, growing into it.
Right.
But post COVID and the uh, the arriving on the scene, AI coming in
Yeah.
with a storm. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think that what we call online learning during COVID is really what Anthony Salcido and I have referred to, and many others, as remote learning, because it really isn't the authentic online and virtual learning that we've worked so hard to build standards for and high quality expectations for over the past 20, 30 years. So what we saw in COVID was, like you said, emergency online or remote learning, where teachers were kind of doing the best they could with what they had access to. What we will see in the future, in my opinion, is we will see a wonderful hybrid model, kind of erupt, that is going to appreciate the value of students being able to learn in an online setting and be reinforced or have that expansion opportunity like you have going on in the background of you, where kids can do some hands-on learning with materials and in collaborative groups that they couldn't do at home. They can learn in an online environment at home, but they can't do great collaborations with rich materials in a home setting. So I think you're going to see a good hybrid model come out of it. At least that's what I'm praying for. And
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I mean, I think that this is the time. If there is any other time, Ken Robinson talked about this, rest his soul, for
yes,
years, and it's sad that he wasn't able to live to see where we are, because this is probably the pinnacle, and we are getting ready to shift and move into the direction that he spoke about for so many years. At least that's my dream, and that's my vision.
absolutely. And I was honored to interview Sir Ken, and he had quite a vision on
Yeah.
innovation and his passion around the importance of imagination. And right behind me, I mentioned it off air that we have a summer robotics camp, and this organization, Steamworks Studio, I met with the headquarters, the CEO, and just after ISTE at in where was it? Just outside of
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Yeah, and it, it was amazing. Princeton. They were based in
Princeton.
Princeton,
Oh yeah.
and just a fascinating organization. They incorporate the arts in STEAM, and these kids, they're the younger kids here this morning were just flying along, learning coding and creating and racing their little robots that they programmed. It's never been a more exciting time to be in education. And,
Yeah.
with legends like yourself being part of this conference really legitimizes the value of being a participant, and talk to us about why they should attend. And here's that component of
Yeah.
the website.
Well, I mean, things change so quickly in our space. They change very quickly. It takes a long time, though. There's a long runway to transition to a sale, right? So, one of the things that we hope to bring to the conversation is just kind of lessons learned around, if you've been in the space, what have you learned? What have you learned about selling into this market? What have you learned about how to market into this space? What have you learned about the sales cycle and how that works? The funding is very different in education, no matter what country you're in, but particularly in the States, because there's 50 of them. And,
Right.
you can't, it's not centralized, not even on the best day is it centralized. And even within a state, it's not centralized. It's so localized that it makes it very challenging for
Mm.
someone to come in and sell into that space. So we're hoping to kind of demystify some of that for everybody and help people understand logical sales cycles that you can kind of lean into and make sure that you're meeting your quota and getting your budget numbers that you need, but also living within this super long tail of a sales cycle. And then also, we want to talk about just what's on the horizon? You talked about AI. AI is definitely out there. Data privacy issues are out there. We in the States, several states have passed legislation around data privacy, but there is conversation nationally about a national legislation. And of course, other countries have already taken that on and already dealt
Right.
with that. But we've got to corral a lot of people to get anything nationally done. So
Sam, we're doing an initiative like that up here as
yeah, you
well.
are, and it's cool that we're kind of doing it parallel,
Right.
right? Because
Absolutely.
I think we can learn a lot from one another. And there's a lot that we can learn from UK, who already implemented something like this a few years ago. And, I'm sure there's things they could share with us that they would do differently now, right? But somebody has to be the first one out of the gate. And thank goodness it was them. But, that's going to be part of the conversation. And, we also want to talk about just kind of how do you take care of yourself when you're in this space? It can be it can be a lonely space, but it can also be a crowded space, right? You can be in
Absolutely.
a position and you can have a product and you can be trying to sell, and you can feel like nobody's listening to you, nobody's answering your emails, nobody's responding. That can be very lonely. It can also be very crowded because there's a lot of different products in the space, and we're all competing for the same dollars, so to speak. So
Absolutely.
how can we be smart about that, right? There can be a healthy competitive edge, but we can also collaborate and come in with packages. So how can we do that in a smart way to where
Right.
we can actually make make the sell?
I was going to say it could also be very collegial to that point,
Yes.
and
Yes.
collaborative. It's such a great community. I mean, I have relationships like yourself and others that go back, span, 3 decades plus in
Yeah.
this sector, because it's about making an impact. It's about connecting the dots between education and industry, and making an impact on the lives of students, and helping teachers thrive as well in all that they do. So
Yeah.
you've got me sold on this, so I'm going to be coming
Yay.
down. And we started the Canadian EdTech Alliance, and we've got some 500 companies on in our roster that we'll be sharing this information for, and they should really be looking hard at this if they're serious about making an impact in this industry, because
Yeah.
this was lacking. There was a great conference we all attended for many years that doesn't exist any longer. So
Mm-mm.
kudos to you for having the vision to fill the gap, you and Christine at Tech and
Mm.
Learning, and so grateful for your time
Thank you.
today, Dr.
Yeah.
Kecia
Thanks for
Ray.
having me, and definitely share widely across Canada. There's so much that we have in common with one another, and there's
Absolutely.
so much great work going on in Canada in the edtech space. I would love for everyone to come down and see, what's going on at this event, but also share what's going on in Canada with everybody stateside.
Looking forward to it. Thank you again. That was Dr. Kecia Ray at K20 Connects and co-producer of Tech and Learning EdExec Summit, September 6th to 8th. My name is Robert Merdlanchi, the Mindshare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindshare learning to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.